So tonight's huge. Tomorrow's even bigger. Nice now to join us with more on that. Pelicans radio analyst John DeShazer joining us. John DeShazer, pardon me. John, welcome to the show. Sorry about all that nonsense. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Hey, isn't Caruso the white mama? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, he is. What's going on, John? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. We're very, very excited. We know Zion's out tomorrow. Can you update us on Brandon Ingram and Jose Alvarado, how they're doing health-wise?
Well, Brandon Ingram went through practice today, as did Alvarado. Both of them look good. Brandon Ingram actually looked probably the best he's looked since he returned. He missed 12 games at the end of the season with a bone contusion, and he played the last 2 games, including the first play-in game. Did not look like himself. But today in practice, he very much looked like, the Brandon Ingram who we expect to see. He looked healthy, looked athletic, looked pretty aggressive, and he looks like he's ready to step into that role as the alpha for this team, which he's had to do, several times. Obviously, this team, you don't want to play without Zion Williamson, but they were 7-5 without him this season. We know what's happened in past seasons where Zion Williamson played, either none of the season or less than half the season, and Brandon Ingram had to be kind of the lead dog. So he's ready to assume that role. It's a pretty natural position for him, unfortunately, for this franchise, but he is ready to, I believe, ready to step into that role.
John, how would you assess the vibe, the mood of the team, considering a week ago they were in the 6th spot, in control of their destiny, and now they're playing for their lives right now? How would you assess the mood of the team after a couple of tough losses to the Lakers this last week?
Well, they seem pretty energized. Today they seem, fairly upbeat, not, giggly, ha-ha, but, just a team that was pretty focused and feeling like, we had some opportunities, but we still get another one. And I guess they're pretty fortunate to have that, 49 wins, and that's an improvement from last season, but not being out of the play-in was not an improvement from last season, but they seemed fairly energized today and seemed like a team that's ready for the task at hand. I mean, it's been difficult when you lose your last 2 games, and especially now that they've lost, 6 consecutive games at home. And to lose that last Laker game with Zion Williamson leaving the game was really a crusher, because, the feeling is if Zion Williamson doesn't leave that game with 3 minutes left in the game, they're probably going to win that game. The momentum was, had shifted to their direction, and he was pretty much unstoppable. He scored 40 in the game. But all things considered, I think they've had, having the day off yesterday probably did them some good. Got back on the court today, got some shots up, got into pretty good practice, and they look pretty spirited.
John DeShazer is our guest here. He's a Pelicans radio analyst. John, in your opinion, what's the single biggest reason why the Pelicans are 5-0 and a dominant 5-0 against the Kings so far this year?
Well, they've been able to just shoot the lights out against the Kings. I mean, 22 of 40 from 3 in the last game that they played them, and they've been able to really play well, even though they've been missing some guys in some of those games. They've really figured out a way. And I think a huge thing is Jonas Valanciunas seems to play very well against Domantas Sabonis. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. Maybe they're countrymen and all that kind of thing, and then maybe they got a little rivalry or something going on. But he seems to play pretty well, and he's able to stay on the court at the center position. And Sabonis, even though he puts up pretty decent numbers, doesn't necessarily dominate. And I think that's helped a whole lot. You've got Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels as the 2 wing defenders who basically try to take on the task of guarding De'Aaron Fox. We know nobody can guard De'Aaron Fox, but you kind of do a decent job of making things difficult, even though he's going to get his points. You just want to make him have to work extra hard. And if you can get to the peripheral guys, if you can, slow down to Keegan Murray and slow down to Harrison Barnes and, get those kinds of things under control, then you might have a decent chance to beat Sacramento. Look, beating the team 5 times in a season is, 1, unprecedented, and 2, means absolutely nothing right now, because the Pelicans don't have Zion Williamson. They don't have a guy who for the last month and a half was playing at an all-NBA level and who looked like a transcendent. He looked like a transcendent talent for a month and a half. So they don't have him, and now you've got to kind of reestablish the chemistry with Brandon Ingram stepping in back into a lead role. So those 5, I kind of throw them out. I know the Pelicans scored very, very well in those games, averaged 128. But, really, you're talking about a Sacramento team that exercised the demon, got rid of Golden State, and probably has a pretty decent amount of confidence. And look, if I'm Sacramento, the first thing I'm thinking is, ain't nobody going to get me 6 times. You might get me 5, but ain't nobody going to get me 6 times. So if I'm them, and I mean, look, the percentages are against it. I mean, you just can't continue. At some point, a team's going to get you. And if for the Pelicans, they're certainly hoping it will not be Friday night.
John DeShazer joining us here on the Drive Guys Sactown Sports 1140. John, when I look at CJ McCollum and his splits, 21.8 points in wins, 17 points in losses, and wins 46.5% from 3-point range, and losses 35.4. How critical is CJ, who has really demolished us this season, 70% from 3? How critical will CJ be tomorrow?
Huge, because he did not play well against the Lakers. Obviously, the expectation is he won't have 2 bad games like that in a row. He was 1 for 9 against the Lakers from 3-point range. And now he was on a heater for about a month and a half, the last half of the season, where he really shot the ball well. And it's one of those things where, just mentioned the law of averages. You just know it's going to happen at some point. It happened at the absolute worst time for the Pelicans, the play-in game against the Lakers, but we expect him to bounce back. He's the consummate pro, as you guys know. And so we expect him to bounce back and play well. But again, you have to factor in the missing Zion Williamson and the amount of attention he draws defensively, and he allows guys to either be open or get open on the hockey assist. So, that's one of those things that has to factor into it. When you don't have Zion Williamson, the open looks that CJ McCollum had might not be as easily there, because if I'm the Kings, I'm saying, look, this guy has torched us, and we're going to guard him. It's going to have to be somebody else. He's not going to make another 9 threes against us as he did the last game. It's going to have to be somebody else. We might not win the game, but it won't be because of that guy. And so if I'm the Kings, I'm certainly going to dedicate some defensive attention to it.
John, after the last game here, CJ, I think he told TNT that, they should have drafted me. Could you, if you get a chance, please tell him that we have different GM and coach, and it's all different basketball ops now. So, please ask CJ to let that go, because we can't stand the way he's shooting against us.
Let me tell you something, guys. Devin Booker from the Suns had triple back-to-back games of 58, 52, and 52 against the Pelicans. And I personally went down to their bench and said, Book, we're sorry. Whatever it is we did, and whoever did it, we're sorry. Because he went on a tear against the Pelicans. And fortunately, the Pelicans were able to win that next one. But, man, sometimes a guy just has a team in his sights, and there isn't a whole lot you can do about it. But, again, things have a tendency of balancing out.
John DeShazer joining us for tomorrow's game against the Pelicans and the Kings. John, why did you think the Pelicans have struggled at home so much this season?
If I could tell you that, I'd probably be the head coach of this team. I really do not know.
Well, they don't have great crowds, right? I mean, it's true that they're not. It's not a great crowd, but is that a factor typically?
No, actually, they've had great crowds down the stretch, but they haven't given the crowds anything to be excited about. When you're 21-20 at home, that's just not what you want to be. And I mean, to be a good team in the NBA, to be a really good team in the NBA, you got to be a good home team. The Pelicans were the best road team in the league, but couldn't figure out a way to win games at home. A lot of it had to do with losing in those clutch games, those 5-point games in the last 5 minutes where they just didn't execute down the stretch, which should be better at home, right? You should be more comfortable. But it just didn't happen. And a lot of times the Pelicans, another thing I can't explain, role players play better at home generally. But the Pelicans role players have played better in the road games, especially in the road games in that last 4-game road trip where the Pelicans were able to sweep it. So I just can't put a finger on it. I don't know if these guys have a little bit more pressure on them at home, if they feel a little bit different, or, if people bother them about tickets or what. I don't know what it is, but, they've got to figure it out Friday night, because it's been something that's been an issue this entire season, and it just didn't start these last couple of games. I mean, they lost a critical home game to San Antonio. They coughed up a late lead to Oklahoma City. So it's been an issue this entire season where this team cannot get a handle on home games.
John DeShazer, outstanding radio analyst for the Pelicans. John, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Really interesting stuff. We appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. And, I can't really wish you luck. You personally wish all the luck in the world. And let's hope we have a memorable game tomorrow night.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Interesting. He's is he sandbagging us?
A little bit.
It's tough to beat a team 6 times in a row.
Right. He's telling us what the Kings should be thinking going down there. Yeah, it's going to be a great game.
Even up. CJ's been on fire, but these things even up.
You know what? He's preparing himself for the loss. That's all it is, right?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's setting himself up for the loss.
It's almost like he's a little too confident underneath it all. I don't know. When we come back, is a successful, quote unquote, a successful season hanging in the balance for the Kings tomorrow night. Next with the Drive Guys on Sactown Sports.